And Assemblyman Billy Jones joins us now. Welcome. Good to see you.
Great to be back. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
With the new year comes the beginning of a new session in Albany, kicking off next week with Governor Hochul's State of the State on Tuesday. What are some of the bigger issues you're expecting the governor to address?
Well, I think they're the issues that we've been talking about for the past couple of years. Obviously, housing, child care, affordability here in New York State need to be at the top of the list. And one of the personal issues that I am going to be tackling head on this year is our crisis in health care, in long-term care, home health aides, nursing homes. We need to do something about that. My office is inundated every single week with calls from people that can't get their loved ones into a certain nursing home close to us here in the North Country or close to their homes. We need to address this issue. It's a crisis, and I know you've done a lot of reporting on home health care aides as well. And if we don't have enough home health care aides to keep people, in their homes, aging in place, then the alternative is nursing homes, assisted living. But we're not keeping up with nursing homes, the demands on them, staff ratios. They just simply don't have enough help. We don't have enough beds for these people. It's a crisis. It's getting worse. We need to address it head on. And
you were part of our panel last spring talking about that. There was a waiting list then of thousands of people, and talk about the need for more caregivers and paying them more so that more people will be willing to be caregivers.
Absolutely. Those ones that take care of our loved ones and our neighbors, we need to take care of them. And you're never going to recruit people in that field unless we professionalize it. And I mean by professionalizing it, by paying them living wages as well to take care of our loved ones. But I know I, along with several of my colleagues, are making this a priority this year.
Governor Hochul has been warning for months that the state is likely facing a multi-billion-dollar deficit this fiscal year. Best estimate right now about $9 billion. Will this be a year of belt tightening for the state of New York?
I think it has to be, Tom. And I know a lot of the organizations and towns, villages, and school districts don't want to hear that because a lot of them depend on state aid. I don't think you'll see the increases that we've seen in the past, but we don't have the federal stimulus money anymore, which we've had for the last 3 years. People don't want to pay more taxes. So it's going to be hard to generate more revenue, and I don't blame them. We are taxed to the max here in New York State. We cannot do that. We've been spending money. We've been spending a lot of money in the past couple of years. I'm not saying there'll be serious cuts to a lot of our major programs, but I don't know if you'll see those spending increases that you have seen in the past 3 years.
The governor's big initiative last year was to create 800,000 new units of housing over 10 years. It didn't pass. It didn't get support even from Democrats. There's thought that she might try to reintroduce that. Do you think there's some sort of a compromise that might be able to get through this year?
Well, you hit it, and I hit it right off the bat, right? Housing. We need housing affordability, and I can speak for what I see here in the North Country. We don't have the housing stock. We don't have the opportunity for people to even buy a first home or get a larger home or get those rental places that we need for our workforce. So when you talk about workforce development, you can't not talk about housing. I think the heavy-handed approach of a statewide, just coming in like the governor did, she gave it a crack. There were certain elements of that I could support for sure. But I think a lot of, when it comes to, the state coming in and doing zoning, towns and villages and counties get awfully nervous with that, a heavy-handed approach. So I think from a not a top-down approach, a bottom-up approach, and I think she has actually mentioned that in the past, several months, going into these communities and what works for them. How can this work? Along with state support. What I see in our area a lot is not necessarily the top income earners or the lower income owners, it's that middle class. We don't have housing stock here, and you can talk to any realtor, you can talk to any family trying to buy a house. We just don't have the stock. So maybe some kind of state incentive for building more housing stock in that range, or something, a tax incentive or something to get that construction or get those houses on the market.
A big election year coming up. You and your fellow Democrats okay to change in elections in New York State that will move some local elections to even years from odd years, from off-election years. For example, county legislators, town supervisors, those elections will move to even years. A number of elections will stay in off years, in odd years. But was that a move that you weren't all that thrilled about? A number of Democrats thought it'll increase voter turnout to have them the same years as presidential elections and congressional elections. But have you had problems with moving these elections?
I absolutely did, and I voted no on it. I understand the premise behind it, getting more people out. We've seen the numbers. More people do get out in the even years, presidential years. But my feeling about it is you know, in those off-year elections, odd-year elections, whatever you want to call them, people get to actually talk about local issues, and that's what they're voting for. You know, a lot of these elections that we have, voting for a U.S. senator, it doesn't really have an effect on day-to-day in people's lives like a local election would. Honestly, you know, a town supervisor, somebody that you're going to see and talk to all the time, that they're dealing with local issues. I'm just fearful that those local issues will get lost in it. Also, you're going to have a big ballot out there. You're going to have, who knows? You might have town council people, village people, people running for village office on the backside of a ballot. Ballot redesign, another issue for another day, but I think we need to address that as well if we're going to do this, which we are. The governor signed it into law. I voted no on it because I am fearful that local issues will get lost in the mix.
It is an election year. Will you be announcing your re-election bid?
Absolutely. I have been honored and privileged to serve the constituents here in the 115th Assembly District and the North Country for the past 4 terms. I guess I'm going in the middle of my 4th term here. They've given me that honor and that privilege, and I can't thank them enough for that. And I look forward. I still have a lot of unfinished business out there to do. I will say I'm not a lifer here. I'm not a lifer in this position. I said that right from the beginning. But I think we have a lot of great projects going on and a lot of good work going on that I'd like to see continue.
And for you, new legislative session, what are some of your priorities for this year? We talked about a couple at the top, but what are some of the other priorities you have for the year?
Well, you know what? We're going to create I have an Adirondack Task Force Commission that I would like to, get set through to deal with housing here specifically in the North Country and in the Adirondacks. You
have had a number of bills get through, bills now to help volunteer fire departments, rural fire departments with funding and training.
Absolutely. For capital investments and to buy equipment, got through in the budget, not as much as we wanted. I have another bill actually this year to continue that funding, $150 million over the next 3 years for helping volunteer fire departments and also law enforcement to get them the necessary equipment that they need here.
Another bill, you helped negotiate a land settlement agreement between the St. Regis Mohawk tribe and the state of New York. Not finalized yet, but moving forward, that would take, about 2,000 acres of land that was sold to the state of New York way back in the early 1800s and allow the tribe the opportunity to reacquire it?
Yes, absolutely. It's an opportunity for them to acquire land. They're not coming in, they're not taking land. It's an opportunity for them to purchase this land back. And this has been an issue that I've dealt with, basically all of my government career, political career, from going back to my county days as well. And it is an opportunity, a big opportunity to move forward in these negotiations, to finalize these negotiations. I don't want to speak for either side in it, absolutely, but we needed the state to step up and do this so that we could get to this point, and I think we're closer now than we've ever been.
State's climate change law is in place, many deadlines soon approaching. Schools are supposed to be buying electric buses only within just 3 years by 2027. I know there's a group of state senators that have raised concerns about this, that maybe the state ought to subsidize more or even pick up the full cost. Where are you on that? A number of small school districts up here haven't even started purchasing electric buses yet.
Absolutely. I've always been under the premise, Tom, that if we are going to implement a state mandate, whether it be on the school districts or on the towns and villages, we ought to pony up and pay for it. I don't know if this mandate is within that time frame is even, if we can do it, because you also have to think about the infrastructure here. It's not just the purchasing of the bus, which is expensive. We're running in statewide into the hundreds of millions of dollars, but the infrastructure around that. These electric vehicles need, charging. A lot of times they can't be stored outside. A lot of good intentions put behind, these laws to address climate change, which I think most people are supportive of. But when you get down in the weeds, I don't think we're going to meet that state mandate. I don't think we have the infrastructure to do it. So, I have some serious concerns about that as well.
You, along with Assemblyman Matt Simpson and State Senator Dan Steck, say you're all open to the idea of a constitutional amendment to deal with state-owned facilities that are going unused in the Adirondack Park, like the prisons at Camp Gabriel's and Mariah Shock. Basically passing an amendment that would allow municipalities to use those facilities, that it wouldn't have to be a state-owned facility moving in there, that it wouldn't have to go back to the state forest preserve land. Are you thinking that may move forward, and is that a good idea?
There's a lot of talks out there on how we can deal with these decrepit facilities that are in I have several in my district. Actually, even before I got into this office, I had three state prisons that closed in my district. Also, you have DEC facilities. You have facilities all over that fall into this category. And absolutely, anytime we can make an easier transition to get them into the hands of people that are going to actually do something with these facilities, we need to do it. Because tell me, talk about Camp Gabriel's. I've been dealing with this for several years now. When we're talking about that facility, and there are certain groups that want to see it, forest preserved, they want to see nothing done with it, they want to see this, they want to see that. But we have buildings that are literally falling into the ground there with who knows what, lead, asbestos, whatever there is in there. Tell me, is that something that's better for the environment than actually allowing somebody in there to do something with these facilities in these buildings? No way.
Governor Hochul's State of the State coming up early next week. Anything you want to hear from her in that address?
Well, I want to hear more about helping our infrastructure. Every year we go at this, roads, bridges, cell phone infrastructure, internet, actually broadband. I don't know how many conversations have had with you over the years about broadband connectivity. I want to see how we're going to invest in that and how we're going to help further along our development in those areas. Water and sewer infrastructure. I'm telling you what, a lot of our small towns and villages in our water districts are suffering because they just simply can't afford to make those upgrades to those facilities, and we need to do more to help them.
And Lake Placid and New York City have submitted a bid. We may be hearing any day now whether or not the bid will be accepted, and many people consider it a long shot. Yes, the 2026 Olympics, they may move the sliding events out of Italy. Austria, Switzerland, poised to probably be the host sites, but Lake Placid did make a bid along with New York City to host those sliding events and host the third Olympics in Lake Placid. Was it a good move for Lake Placid to make that bid?
It was an excellent move for them to make that bid. We have world-class facilities, especially in sliding sports, right here in Lake Placid. We've invested in them, a tremendous amount of investment from New York State. But I believe it fits right in with the goal of future talks with events as well. And, we're hopeful. I know there's a group of us that have been working on this, and we're very hopeful that we can be an alternative. I think it's a very worthwhile proposal. This proposal was an alternative to help Italy out, to help the IOC. I know we have world-class facilities here, and it also makes that Lake Placid, New York City connection for talks of future world events.
Billy Jones, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.
Always a pleasure.